I also would like to say that we had some very unfortunate things happen on August 14 after our AdCom. Somebody, we don't know who, took information, which is privileged information from AdCom, and sent it to an independent journal where it was published before correspondence could even be enacted in-house. That is completely unethical. I might also add that recently we had a General Conference and Division Officers meeting, and within a number of hours, information was reported to an independent journal which indicated who spoke, what they said, what the vote was, and that wasn't even recorded electronically. So somebody who is in General Conference Division Officer Group had to have given that information either to someone else who then relayed it. That, my friends, is also very unethical.
I am Ron Smith, President of the Southern Union and the North American Division. Please know I continue to pray for God's wisdom for you as you provide leadership for the World Church. As a steward who's been assigned leadership of 300,000 members in 8 conferences and 3 universities, I've risen to speak against this document. In the last several years, more than 60,000 people have been added to our constituency through the evangelistic efforts of students, young adults, medical professionals, educators, church employees, and a battery of Christian men and women. We are particularly frustrated and disheartened as we embark upon our 2019 Southern Union Year of Lay and Pastoral Evangelism because of what is being proposed by this document today. In the Southern Union, we are straining, as I said last year, we are straining in our quest to stay aligned with the leadership direction of the World Church. However, this new machinery of a document continues to heighten mistrust of World Church leadership. If this document passes, it will change the culture of our constituency and how we perceive and relate to our church. We don't know who will be in or out of compliance next. Paranoia surrounding what gets enforced and what doesn't will increasingly exist. We are distracted, hurt, and demoralized. We're just trying to do responsible mission in the Southern Union. Can we please focus on what unites us rather than what divides us? I urge this committee to remove this document from consideration. I urge my colleagues to vote this document down. It is not good for the church. Thank you.
Thomas Müller, Union President in Denmark. I stand here somewhat divided, Mr. President. I have great respect for you and your responsibility, and it's without no doubt that Denmark supports the World Church and its policies and voted actions. We need these guidelines, of course we do. But I'm divided between policy and conscience. Please understand me, this is not just my conscience, but I speak on behalf of a collective conscience, a majority of my constitution. The document before us comes out of the women's ordination issue. While I realize that it has been broadened the scope to other areas, the fact is that we would not have this document had it not been for that issue. I'm asking the rhetorical question, will this document solve the matter? No, I'm afraid it potentially just will create mistrust. See, in my part of the world, we spell unity, T-R-U-S-T, trust. My son was baptized last month. He's now a 5th-generation Adventist. Our family holds the Adventist message very dear. But what kind of Adventism am I giving on to my child and my children if we vote this kind of document? I think there's unintended consequences like mistrust, suspicion steered from the top. You challenged us to bring back good reports. I challenge this body that confidence between us, mutual trust will be the report we bring back. It's a matter of perspective. You said yesterday it depends on your outlook. What you see is often what you expect to see. So, do you see the non-compliant side or do you see the compliant side? Let me assert that if we rather foster trust among us, we will see unity and we will find solutions together. This document does not foster trust. Therefore, we need to vote no.
I am the Hungarian Union Conference President. As we learned, our history is full of lessons. Did you know that the very first religious liberty law in Europe was ratified in the Hungarian Parliament's Edict of Torda 450 years ago? It was said, "Faith is the gift of God that is from hearing, and hearing is from the word of God. Faith without freedom is only a chain for the soul. The soul in shackles is only a colorless flower. The tree fallen on the rock strives toward the light, but as it grows toward the heavens, it never suppresses the other trees beside it." Freedom of conscience is important for Adventists. I know it from my experience. A church schism started 43 years ago in Hungary, when a group of believers complained, but the leadership guarded the unity of the church with disciplinary actions. As a result, 40 years of division, pain, and countless lost opportunities in proclaiming the three angels' messages followed. By God's grace, we learned that the unity of love, patience, and prayer cannot be substituted by the unity of a majority decision, even with the best of intentions. The foundation of church unity must be the Bible alone. Therefore, I ask you to consider, should we make any teaching that we cannot fully and without any doubt prove from the Bible to be a condition of unity? And my most serious concern against the motion, do we really want to use our recent arguments to produce a controversial disciplinary tool that will deepen our rifts, wound our souls, and hurt the unity of our beloved church family, and would be used as shame and blame to and alienate brothers and sisters in the Lord in any given subject that is supported by a majority? Brother Chairman, therefore, I cannot support this motion. Thank you for listening.
In addition to that, we need to understand Europe is very much different from the rest of the world feels. Though European division is the smallest, Europe will be the major player in the final events. It is not the Muslim world, even though jihadists would like it to be so. It is not the post-communist Russia, even though Mr. Putin would like us to believe so. It is not Africa. It is not South America. It's not Asia. It is not even America. America is a co-player with Europe. Present-day Europe is built on secular, humanistic philosophy of the Enlightenment and French Revolution. Liberté, égalité, fraternity, you translate me. This is reflected in the votes of the local governments in Europe. Equal opportunities and equality of both sexes is firmly built in the legislation. How much this is followed is an entirely different matter. Should the church appear before the European Court? What would be the end result? I don't know. Israel, during the Judges, came to the point where the voices for the kingship grew louder. One reason may have been the corruption of the latter judges. Secondly, it was the governing model of Israel's neighbors. Samuel approved, though grievingly. But yet, Jesus came out of that Davidic line. Or divorce, that was allowed. Regardless of what we believe about the women's role in the church, we need to sit down and carefully consider how to move on.
Ellen White makes it clear that the lamb-like beast that came out of the earth, the United States, had two things that made it successful and powerful, God ordained. Protestantism, and republicanism. In fifth testimony, under the chapter Final Crisis, Ellen White again says that just before the second coming, that lamb-like beast is going to speak as a dragon, because it will reject every principle of Protestantism and republicanism. If ever a church should be standing today at the end of the world, it is us, standing for those two principles. I ask that we reject this document. It does not follow the lines of Protestantism nor republicanism. In one instance, I will point out there are several. It is a significant change from the Constitution to now adopt a document that would allow one level of an organization to bypass another level of organization because they have not perceived to deal with something in a timely way. There are three constitutions: conference, union, General Conference. There are reasons why we have those constitutions. Each are to be acknowledged. Each constituency is to be honored. This document dishonors the constituencies of the other constitutions. For that reason, I ask that we vote no to this document.
As a young person on this committee, I am particularly thinking that all young persons everywhere will be happy with this document, because voting against us is a recipe for anarchy, pandemonium, and confusion. And so I am saying that as a father, I would not be happy if in the House we cannot have rules and regulations existing to bind us together and to tell us what
Mr. Chairman, I have a threefold burden with this document. When I look at the ministry of the Seventh-day Adventist mission and the souls we serve and seek to save. First, the proposed procedures imply that the division or GC could force me and probably every other union president in this room to go after almost each conference president in their field. Is there any conference that could not on some issue be regarded as non-compliant? There may be churches using another hymnal in worship service than the official voted one, taking tithe outside from their field, changing dates in the calendar of offerings, all things that someone could claim threatens the unity of the church. Dealing with these issues within a massive compliance oversight system as proposed will not lead to unity at all, but on the contrary to a climate of distrust and suspicion, permanent conflict, diminished transparency and fear. Second, a core principle of representative government is the separation of powers. Since the compliance committees somehow, as proposed, would have a judicial function, they would have be completely independent from the executive authority. Staffing them and controlling their leadership and functions largely with GC personnel would violate this core principle of democracy. And third, if we would vote this paper, this body could be charged with being non-compliant itself, since the development and operation of conciliation and dispute resolution procedures, according to Working Policy B 4510, is ascribed to the divisions. For these reasons and others beyond my two-minute time limit, on behalf of the faithful Seventh-day Adventists in our church, I urge this body not to pass this document. Thank you.
Johannes Nathan, North German Union. In the last months, I have received hundreds of mails and letters from church members in my field. They are shocked, and many of them are totally frustrated, and they cannot believe in which direction the world church leadership wants to go. I'm also deeply concerned about the direction our church will take if this document gets a majority. For years we have been discussing rules and laws with the intention to control ourselves even better. We are of the opinion that we can produce even more unity and make ourselves better Adventists. I think the opposite will be the case. In the document lies the temptation, the great temptation of power and abuse of power. No organization and no leader is immune, no matter what country we live in. The document will create an atmosphere of distrust and divide our church into good and bad Adventists. We achieve the opposite of unity when we think that through human efforts we can achieve unity. The unity of the church is accomplished and guaranteed by Jesus alone. In a church with more than 20 million members and hundreds of different cultures, who decides which union or conference behaves right? Freedom and self-responsibility are one of the highest values of the Bible. With the threat of punishment and coercion, we damage the gospel. We must be clear about this. I would never will work with this document, and so my urgent appeal to the delegate is to reject the document and dissolve the compliance committees.
During my university and seminary trainings, I was taught to recognize the ecclesiastical authority of our church. And now I personally believe in the authority of the church. And I believe this document promotes unity as far as the church authority is concerned. Disobedience will not foster unity and peace amongst God's people. My field experience for more than a decade taught me to deal rightly those who are not complying to the standards of the church. Because if not, this would create questions, divisions, and factions among our church members. So complying is very vital to preserve unity. Satan will try to disrupt unity because he knew when we are not united, God's mission will be hampered. So it is my position that for the sake of unity and mission, I will follow the decision of the church. Though sometimes my convictions is against the policy, still, I will wait for God's appointed time to correct it by not exhibiting an attitude of defiance, by doing the opposite of what has been decided. So how can we expect obedience from our church membership when we ourselves are not obedient to our leaders? Good leader is a good follower. So my appeal to those who have the opposite conviction to the current position of the church to stay calm, let's obey first, then complain. So my decision is subservient to the decision of the church. I vote yes for this document.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would state by saying clearly that I am in favor of order in the church. I certainly couldn't run a university without a commitment to both order and compliance. But I cannot support this document within the current context of the church. The document may be legal, justified by policy, and supported by questionnaires. However, what can be done is not necessarily what should be done. The breadth and depth of the church and the huge differences in the environment in which divisions and unions work throughout the world requires, in my mind, a far more measured, understanding, and can I say, gentle response. Let's not dismiss too easily the representatives of whole countries, maybe small unions, but whole countries, that are speaking from their hearts about the challenges this document will bring to them. Perceived, and I want to emphasize the word perceived, forced and centralized compliance will not bring unity. It's very easy to decide that others are not in compliance or question their motives, even that of millions of members, when they are not close to us. It is easy to set up regulations and a discipline process to deal with issues that are complicated and uncomfortable, but this will not take away the problems, especially where issues are related to conscience and then justice. To regulate is simple. To work and develop trust among the diffuse and diverse membership of our church is far more complicated. That trust cannot be legislated, but it's essential if we are to focus on united mission and away from perceived divisive judgment. Trust will solve non-compliance and encourage unity in a way legislation cannot do. Thank you.
The vote has been tabulated and accounted for, and we thank Secretariat for doing that, and also GCAS. The yes votes were 185, the no votes 124, and 2 abstentions. So the motion passes. That is not a time for rejoicing on anybody's part. I would hope that we will move forward in mission. I would hope that we will not engage in any vindictiveness on any side. I want to tell you, I believe that the Holy Spirit was here today guiding our deportment and our speaking. And it is in that same precious spirit that I ask that we leave this auditorium tonight.